So my dear friends, today Professor Mian will be here today, and I respect him a lot as a teacher, as a person. And why we do this type of introduction is not for self-praise and not for sort of self-promotion, but the purpose is to self-reflect and to know each other so that the more we know each other, the more we can learn from each other. So my friend from Kenya is there. The more we know each other, the more we can learn from each other. So that's why I made a small slide of Professor Mian, and so want to learn. So Professor Mian is talking from like 23 hours distance. So from sunny Oswego, a direct flight of 23 hours, Mian Sahab. Can you see my picture? Can you see the map?
Yeah, I live in I live in Syracuse.
Yeah, but still it's nearby. So it's 23 hours flight. And you know this place, Professor Mian? Have you seen this place?
Well, I'll try to recognize that.
This is your business school. This is Professor Mian is a professor of entrepreneurship and strategy at the marketing and management department at the School of Business, sunny Oswego. And he is the recipient of the Chancellor's Award. And he is the author of these three very interesting books. And once again, I think I'm just sharing, not for self-promotion, but to make us understand that Mian Sahab Professor Mian is a resource. His book on science and technology-based regional entrepreneurship and technology entrepreneurship and basic incubation. He has been the associate editor of Journal of Small Business Management, GEM, and many other research projects. So he is a very interesting academic, a professional, and a very interesting news to share with my colleagues who are with me. So people who are working on incubation, if you look at the data, Professor Mian is the most cited person in the world. So we are honored to have him today. So if you look at this list, Sarfraz Ahmed Mian is at the top, the most cited authors. So I think it's a great blessing and speaks volumes of Professor Mian's 35, 40 years of journey in the area of incubation and entrepreneurship. And his journey of incubation and entrepreneurship started when he was in Pakistan. He's a Pakistani origin person. He got his earlier degree from Punjab University, Lahore. And from Lahore, in which year did you go to the US, Mian Sahab? 88 or 90 something?
78.
78. So in 1978, he left Pakistan. He went to Northwestern University, and he did his master's in management and then pursued his PhD at the George Washington University. And from there, he was, did his PhD. And then he was sleeping, eating, and breathing incubation. He was dreaming incubation. So 24 hours, as he said, Mian Sahab. So he left it.
That was my doctoral dissertation also.
Exactly. So he sleeps, eats, and breathes incubation. And he has been to Pakistan, I think, multiple times. He has been helping a lot of universities in South America, in Europe, in Pakistan, and he's open for discussion, and his knowledge, his books are there to get benefit from. And I hope my friends from Africa, they will also benefit from this session today. So Junaid Sahab is here today. Junaid Sahab, Zaidi Sahab, aa gaye ji?
Ji, Dr. Qureshi, I'm here.
Oh, great, great. So aapki sir bari aane wali thodi der mein. So
Sure, ji.
Professor Mian, we will take another 6-7 minutes before we invite you.
Sure. Take your time.
So Professor Mian, under the supervision of the team of 3 people, I, Dr. Zahoor, who's the professor at LUMS, Lahore University of Management Sciences, and Professor Mian, we have been working on a book chapter for Edward Elgar, Incubation and the Entrepreneurial Ecosystem of Pakistan. So I want to give a quick overview to my audience, and then my friend, the CEO of Ignite, CEO of Ministry of Information Technology, Mr. Zaidi is here. and he will be sharing like in 7-8 minutes what the government is doing to promote entrepreneurship and incubation. So he takes care. Zadi Saab is looking after incubation at the national incubation centers. So it will be good to know by the audience to what is happening. And then Mr. Mian will be coming in and sharing the international landscape, what is happening at the international level, and what countries like Kenya, Pakistan, Europe, and Africa and Asia can learn from him. So if you look at the Pakistani landscape, this is the map of Pakistan. On the top is the northern areas. So my friend from Chitral is from somewhere here. My friend Ataur Rahman is at the top, somewhere sitting here in the golden areas. So if you look at this map, you will find that there are like 70, 80 incubators in Pakistan, around 80 incubators. And the entrepreneurial landscape, incubation landscape in Pakistan is relatively new. The first incubator started in 2005. I remember I and Professor Mian visited that, I think it was 2006, when we visited that at Islamabad. It was housed in a small house, and NUST is National University of Science and Technology, was the first one to introduce incubation. And then IBA, where I am now, we came second in 2010. And then 2014, we had other universities coming in. So the incubation is around like 15 years old in Pakistan, but this has catched up. It's still a long way to go. So if you look at the map, we have a lot of incubators now. One category is the NIC incubators.
And drones and the like, and 4Gs, they are the ones which are being funded the most in the platforms. We looked at two top platforms in the US, Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and we found out that in their portfolio, the topmost technologies being funded in the coming years are the ones I just mentioned. Now, a word about university model. I know university is part and parcel of that, and IBA is a university, and we belong to a university, and my whole research in incubation started out of the university milieu. One of the model which I recently studied in depth, you might already know about that, and maybe just to relate with some of the things you might have in your mind, I thought I put it forward. I had an extensive survey and discussion with Ed Roberts, my mentor and colleague, who I respect a lot. He set up the IBM, the MIT's ecosystem over the last 40 years, and he's the guru of that. He established this Martin Trust Center, which is an ideal example of a holistic university-related ecosystem, which has all the key components in that. So I would, here is our visit. I had a professor with me, and we visited their facilities. As you can see, the Martin Trust Center, which is their incubator, and then they have ProtoWorks Lab, which is you know, the labs which the startup labs which are also being introduced, as we mentioned, some of the newer models, sharing spaces and all of that. This is MIT, some of the facilities. The center provides expertise, support, and connections to students to become effective entrepreneurs. They serve all students across the schools, and they have done wonders in terms of creating new firms. Its holistic nature is very much clear here. They offer program at different levels, right from PhDs to MBAs and to bachelors. And they have a whole gamut of courses, different teaching pedagogies are being used. All the support infrastructure, including co-working spaces, incubators, and all of that are there. One of their very prominent unit, which I see when I was listening to Mr. Zadi, was the global lab concept, which is very popular at MIT. They have almost 200 to 250 students in that. And these are undergraduate students mainly, and they are connected globally. They are talking with students in Hong Kong, in Korea, in Japan, all around, in Germany and all of that, and refining their ideas, and then coming forth and go to Delta V rocket and incubator, and then they try to work on that. If you look at the detail, the program components, they call it a kind of a 4H approach: heart, head, hand, and home. Everything is together. Students, right from the first day, are immersed into the whole ecosystem in terms of, you know, you name it, awards and startup things, and creating student leader groups and all of that. And if you look at that, this is how they have progressed from the inspiration to exploration, and the teaching, and to application and extracurricular and acceleration and all of that. So this is something, if you look at the picture in a map sense, it's a very good example. I've seen almost all the good facilities in the United States and Europe, physically visited them many times, interviewed incubator managers and entrepreneurs extensively over the last 30 years. So I'm just talking about this, number one, because I like it very much, and number two, I have recently extensively explored it. Just a kind of a shameless self-promotion. We have a handbook of business and technology incubation and acceleration, which is almost done, which is coming out, which is going to be published. And this would be the first handbook in the field, which will help the practitioners and the policymakers alike to see authentic information, which is research-based and all of that. And we are frantically trying to complete that. Before that, we have other books like Technology, Entrepreneurship and Business Incubation, Theory, Practice, and Lessons Learned. Every 5 years, almost, I have been involved in a kind of a major projects in which we come out with a book. This is beyond the research article we had been working on over the years. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for listening. Now I'm here in case we have any questions. Dr. Qureshi, it's up to you.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum, Professor Mian. My name is Taskin. I will be moderating the question and answer session. We are experiencing a slight problem in Zoom, because of which a lot of participants, including Dr. Shahid Qureshi, have been disconnected. So, yes, I would like to ask if Professor Thomas would like to say something, since he is an avid entrepreneur as well and has a lot of research on networking and entrepreneurship. So, Professor Thomas, do you have any comments? I think his mic is muted. Just a second.
I think now it's on, right?
Yes, now it's there.
Okay. Sarfraz, thank you very much. It's nice to see you again after, what, about 8 years or so, I think?
Yes, that's right. I miss you too. I know.
Yes.
I heard from Shahid that you have been very kind to participate here, and it's so good to see you.
Same to you. Okay, so my question to you, Sarfraz, is now we have the pandemic. And my question then is the pandemic affecting incubators in a particular way that we should think seriously about as researchers and practitioners? I'm, of course, mostly a researcher.
Well, I was expecting that question. And,
yeah.
I believe that this is this real, historic, a historic event. We haven't seen that and experienced that before for generations. It is going to impact pervasively in all of our businesses and industry and the way we do business. I know that when the internet came in and the online movement started out, and we have the virtual incubators, and they were exploding up until 1999. if you look at from a US perspective, the Silicon Valley had a lot of virtual incubators and all of that. And we had what we call dot-com bubble, which burst. So at that time, we saw the peak in terms of the introduction of online facilities and moving us more towards the online situation. But in the later years, we experienced that gradually that online kind of exponential growth in the incubation area started slowing down. One of the reasons was that we human beings are social animals. And we certainly have to rub shoulders. We have to look at the tacit knowledge. We have to look at a lot of other things which the online version perhaps could not transfer. So then again, the movement toward spatial aspects started growing again. So we saw some more accelerators and incubators and other kind of entities started coming in. We have those tech stars and Y Combinators and those entities came in. And some of them were kind of hybrids. They were doing some of the things in a physical sense, and some of the things they're having, their competitions in physical sense. They were holding summer programs and all of those things. So it was a combination of hybrid and all of that, and things moved towards including more and more physical aspects along with the electronic things. Perhaps I think what I see is that we might have another swing back to the more electronic kind of things, and a lot of those functions which we do in terms of physical sense and interactive sense, perhaps with the advancement of technologies and more synchronous aspects coming in and more efficiencies kicking in, new technologies, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and those aspects coming in, we will have a combination of that. We will have a more hybridization of sort. That's what I envision. And I can't say how much, to what extent, but that is the kind of move I envision with respect to the incubation industry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sarfraz. We have a question from Ms. Bina al-Haq. She's a strategist from London, and she's asking that, is there any data that supports the percentage of success between self-started entrepreneurs and the ones that are heavily backed by advanced incubations and accelerators? So is there any data set available that will support the argument?
Support, I'm sorry, I'm missing something here. Support what argument, please? Could you repeat?
Okay. The question is, she's asking that, is there any data that will support the notion that entrepreneurs who start in incubators and accelerators are more successful than entrepreneurs who start with nothing as such?
Yeah, so that has been a bone of contention in the research area. And a lot of people who kind of think in a traditional sense, they think that they cannot see the clear effectiveness unless they compare the two, those who are incubated with the treatment and those with the placebo, those who didn't go through the treatment. One of the key difficulty in setting up research in that way is that it is very, very, very hard to create a comparable sample on the outside. And there had been very few efforts in the UK. There are some researchers who have done that. And in the whole 50 plus years of this discussions and all of that, you can count on fingers 1 or 2 studies which have attempted to do that. But it has been very difficult to do that, how to compare with or without the incubation kind of a situation. So that's why a lot of people who are traditionalists, who want to go by the book, they still think that the jury is still out in this kind of industry. But there isn't much data.
All right. Thank you for that, Professor Sarfraz. We have a question from Lionel Corona.
Yes.
About your opinion, what do you think about Barcelona parks and incubators compared with the MIT ecosystem that you just presented?
You mean the Barcelona?
Yes.
Thank you, Lionel. It's so good to see you here in the discussion. You know, and it's a very pleasant thinking to have some real dear friend up there. We have worked together for 7-8 years. Our first book came out with Lionel and Dr. Dutroux from University of Ottawa. And thank you for being there. Now, I haven't studied the Barcelona model yet. As a matter of fact, in the book which we are finishing up now, we are having that case being written by a person, Mr. Peake, who was the head of the International Science Park and Areas of Innovation Association, the former president. He has written that with one of my colleagues, Aline, who is a very prominent researcher from Brazil. They have compared the Brazilian model and this model together, and as that chapter is coming up. So I don't have in-depth knowledge of that. I will have it once this book is complete, and then I can answer your question.
Okay, thank you.
We have a question. One of our participants is asking the difference between an incubator and an accelerator.
Well, you are going too fast.
All right, sorry. One of the questions is, what is the difference between incubator and accelerator? An accelerator invests in startups also, whereas the incubator only incubates startups without investment.
Yeah, the key difference between a typical incubator, which has different manifestations, and an accelerator is that accelerator is a model which typically focuses on 3 things. One is that they have a cohort which stays together typically for 3 months. It could be 6 months, but a more popular model is 3 months. They are given a strong mentorship. Some mentors who are interested in that idea are there. So, and then there is a focused training program geared towards those ideas which are being developed. And at the end of that, they have a demo day in which that whole pitch deck of the project is presented in front of the venture capitalists or money people so that they can see if they want to invest in that. So it is a very focused short-term treatment, generally 3 months, with these 3 components: focused education, a mentorship, and training, which is also focused, and of course a demo day. This model is very much liked by the private sector, who want to see the results of an idea being incubated within 3 months. They want to have yes or no. So that's why it is popular with them. Incubators are more holistic. There you can also accommodate social entrepreneurship projects. You can accommodate student entrepreneurship projects, and projects which, who knows, will yield the internet, the Google, and the other computer companies which came out, where people had to wait for 3 years and 5 years, and somehow you can get those kind of things. But the private sector does not want to wait. They are impatient, and they are the ones behind this movement.
One more question is, what do you think is the role that incubators play in an entrepreneurship program? within universities for developing countries in the whole ecosystem?
Well, there are different roles the university-oriented incubation programs play in developed as well as developing countries. They not only help in the transfer of university technology, but also help to train students who can go in there and venture their own ideas or act as consultants over there. And also the entrepreneurs who are there, they can go and use university expensive equipment on as available basis and use facilities and all of that, and can also stay in contact with the professors for ideas and for support and all of that. So university incubators are really, really highly desirable and are very successful, things. And as it's a major component of an entrepreneurial university these days. And as you could see, the IBA having so much activities, it's a university, and it has created a lot of ecosystem and activity within Karachi and beyond, and even in the whole country. Likewise, LUMS and other universities are doing that in different countries. And if you look at MIT and they book come out every 5 years or so and shows MIT's impact on the United States, coming based on their incubation and other facilities. It is most of their high-tech industry. So it is so huge and humongous that you just can't ignore it.
All right, perfect.
Is Dr. Qureshi back in there?
No, he's not. Unfortunately, the entire Zoom app is facing a down right now, and it has crashed worldwide for a lot of sessions that have been going on. So we don't have him on right now. I would still like, if Mr. Kevin Mulcahy, do you have any comments? Would you like
Yes.
to say something? He's from Boston. He has also been one of our esteemed guest speakers.
Certainly. Mian, Professor Mian, thank you very much for that presentation. I learned a tremendous amount from the frameworks, distinguishing the frameworks.
Thank you.
So for me, entrepreneurship is fundamentally about identifying and solving unmet needs creatively and sustainably, right? If you can't just meet one need, you have to have a business model that keeps funding you to meet new needs. And I think what you were helping for me to draw out is entrepreneurship is becoming a profession. And what professions do, what they've done since the beginning of guilds in the 10th century, is professions help their members master their profession. And what's unique about the entrepreneurship ecosystems that you laid out is how they accelerate not just the proficiency of those who choose to pursue the profession of entrepreneurship, but the inclusion, the standard for which anyone can participate and be an entrepreneur, to be a member of this profession, unlike every other profession, is low. So what my key question here is the profession of entrepreneurship, what do you see as the key criteria for individuals to declare that they are in that profession? And how do you help individuals think about the profession of entrepreneurship versus the hobby of entrepreneurship? Like, how do we make it a profession that people are proud to be a member of that profession?
Okay, well, thank you, Kevin. When you made the presentation, I have the privilege of peeping in, and I was very very intrigued and enjoyed it. So I have a lot of admiration for the for the presentation, and that was wonderful. And thank you for the question. I think that this even the title of this seminar series, whatever you want to call it, is the entrepreneurial mindset. And I think what you are trying to allude to is that mindset thing, that mindset is the one which creates miracles. And perhaps we may not have to mechanize it in some ways. If I'm understanding correctly, professionalize or mechanize that. And perhaps those big names might come out of these incubation facilities and may come out in the outside, and because they have the burner in their heads and minds, and they provide entrepreneurial leadership of sorts. But the thing is that these tools and these facilities and these mechanisms are there to support and help and facilitate a large number of common people who would like to be in that kind of a situation, of success in creating wealth and all of that. And they need some kind of assistance. I remember when we were growing up, you may be much younger or whatever, but when I was growing up, it was very limited in terms of getting eggs and chicken. Very limited amount of eggs were there, and very limited amount of chickens used to be there, though they used to be very tasty. They were homemade, very limited ones. And I remember once in a while when you used to have some, guests used to come in our homes and all of that, and Mama used to cook chicken. And chicken used to be very tasty and a kind of a delicacy at that time, and very limited. But then the incubation of eggs and chickens started out. And you see how many chickens and eggs we have right now. So it has been kind of publicized. Everyone has the kind of, if you want to call it, the privilege or the enjoyment of eggs and chickens, which are plentiful because of this incubation of eggs and chickens. And so it's a game of numbers too, in that sense. So when you try to help and provide such mechanisms, you can enhance and increase the volumes of those kind of entities, so that even a commoner who is not as intrigued based on the ivory tower kind of concept, when you used to educate only the leaders and the big people and all of that, but those who rebelled and went across the river and created mechanical arts and those kind of things for the good of the human being, and transferred more and more technology and created that revolution, they can benefit from that too.